Okay, so here is revelation for us. Okay, so what I'll do is let me just quickly take you to some of the things that we did in chapter 6 so that it's clear for you. So when we started with chapter 6, this is the seal judgment that the Bible is talking about. Okay, so this is the beginning of the 7 years. One after the other, the angels are opening the, the seal is being opened, the lamb is opening the seal, that is Jesus is opening the seal. And as he opens the seal, there are things that are happening on earth, right? So when we started looking at chapter 6, you remember we looked at the first seal being opened where the Antichrist is introduced to the earth. So this is where the Antichrist. So remember, the seal is not yet opened for us now. So the Antichrist has not been introduced. When the Antichrist will come, God will reveal him to us, him or her to us. Okay. So we looked at how the 7 year tribulation begins with the seal judgment recorded for us in Revelation chapter 6. So the Antichrist comes. Then you looked at how wars will happen. Okay. Then you looked at how famine and economic crisis will come. So every symbolic mention in Revelation has a practical earthly relevance. That is what we are seeing. Then you look at physical and spiritual death. We looked at Old Testament saints who were killed, believers killed during the early part of the tribulation. They are crying out to God saying, how long, oh Lord? Okay. So that is how we look at Revelation chapter 6. And finally, ending with the sixth seal, where you have a nuclear war. But remember, God is controlling it and not man. So one after the other, there's the seals being opened by the Lamb of God, and one after the other there is a progression. Now please remember this progression, because this progression is very, very important. Now between the sixth seal and the seventh seal there is a break, and we see that in chapter 7. Okay, so chapter 7 takes a break, and chapter 7 basically was meant to encourage the readers, because chapter 6 with all the seal judgments is so discouraging that John had to, or God had to insert chapter 7 during the vision so as to encourage the people, because it is not all dark and gloomy. It is not all judgment. There will also be some good stuff that is happening. So chapter 7 is basically taking a break between the sixth seal and the seventh seal. Okay, but what I would like to draw to your attention is to Matthew 24 as we do the study today. Okay, now the seal judgment of Revelation chapter 6, which is the first of the judgments during the tribulation, the seal judgment follows a progression, right? The Antichrist is introduced, then there is war, then there is famine, and all of those things. Interestingly, when you look at Matthew chapter 24, which is considered to be giving, Jesus gives the signs of the end times. The disciples ask him, and he's giving the signs. You will see similar progression given in Matthew chapter 24. Okay, let me read that for you. As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will this happen? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Jesus answered, watch out that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah, and will deceive you. See the progression. It starts with the Antichrist being introduced. So the Antichrist will come claiming to be the Messiah, but will basically deceive believers. So Jesus is telling, be careful. So everything that Jesus tells in Matthew chapter 24, we see a similar progression in Revelation chapter 6. Okay. Then Jesus says, you will hear wars and rumors of war, but see to it that you're not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. Okay, so basically Jesus is saying the beginning of birth pains means this is the beginning of the tribulation. So 7 year tribulation period, all this will happen in the beginning of the tribulation. That is exactly what Revelation chapter 6 also says with the seal judgments. Verse 9. Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other, and many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. So as we look at the 7 year tribulation in Revelation, you recognize that the Antichrist and eventually will introduce the false prophet and then the beast. Okay, so all of this is recorded for us in Matthew chapter 24. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. Okay, so then the end will come. So Jesus in Matthew chapter 24 basically summarizes the 7-year tribulation period that Revelation so clearly and very detailed way presents. Okay, now few things please remember. Again, this is not very important. I don't want to overload all of us with information, but few things remember. Whenever you look at Revelation, the church has sometimes seen them as not chronological. What is the meaning of not chronological? Means that the seal judgment, the trumpet judgment, and the bowl judgment that is recorded for us in Revelation chapter 6 to 19. Many in the church, basically church historians and, basically biblical scholars, they say that these are basically describing the same event. They are not chronological. They are not having one after the other. They are all describing the same events. So we start with the seal judgment in chapter 6. Then we go to the trumpet judgment of chapter 8. And then we go to the bowl judgment later in Revelation. Okay. So for, in the history of the church, several Bible scholars have believed that each of these are basically explaining the same event because the effects are just the same, just different ways of putting it. But most of the church has taken these as chronological account of the end times. That means the seal judgment will happen first, then the trumpet judgment will happen, then the bowl judgment will happen. So even though the effect or the impact may be the same, but these are all different judgments and not different ways of explaining the same judgment. So the church has always taken Revelation in either one of the ways. Some in the church, scholars believe that this is basically explaining one event in different ways, but some believe, most believe, that this is all explaining different events one after the other. Okay, so what we are doing in our study is basically looking at the second option. That is, this is actually a chronological account of the end times and not same things described in different ways. So when I am explaining all the different judgments, remember, I am taking the chronological account. So we are looking at the seal judgment first, then the trumpet judgment will happen, then the bowl judgment will happen between the 7-year tribulation period. Okay, now let's quickly look at Revelation chapter 7. So in Revelation chapter 7, like I said, this is meant to encourage the readers because the seal judgments are very discouraging, right? There is nuclear war, there is famine, there is war, there is the Antichrist introduced, people are dying, like so many people just died. So chapter 7 is supposed to mean that there is hope, that there is light, that there is encouragement and celebration. So this is what John sees. After this, I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds of the earth to prevent any wind from blowing on the land or on the sea or on any tree. Then I saw another angel coming up from the east, having the seal of the living God. He called out in a loud voice to the 4 angels who had been given power to harm the land and the sea. Do not harm the land or the sea or the trees until we put a seal on the foreheads of the servant of our God. So here, one thing we need to remember, that when all the judgments are having during the tribulation period, the children of God, the faithful, will be very supernaturally protected by God. We talk about Jehovah Jireh, right? My provider. God at that time will show that he is really Jehovah Jireh. So those who will believe during the tribulation, they will receive the seal, which is different from the mark of the beast. So God will protect them in a very supernatural and in a very powerful way. Okay. So that is something that we need to remember. Okay. So let's not get scared. Those who will be there at that point of time, those who, believe during the tribulation, God will definitely protect them according to verse 3. Then I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from all the tribes of Israel. From the tribe of Judah, 12,000 were sealed. From the tribe of Reuben, 12,000. From the tribe of Gad, 12,000. From the tribe of Asher, 12,000. From the tribe of Naphtali, 12,000. From the tribe of Manasseh, 12,000. From the tribe of Simeon, 12,000. From the tribe of Levi, 12,000. From the tribe of Issachar, 12,000. From the tribe of Zebulun, 12,000. From the tribe of Joseph, 12,000. From the tribe of Benjamin, 12,000. So when you're looking at all of this, there are 144,000 Jewish people who will be sealed during the tribulation. Okay, remember, this is not before the tribulation. This is talking during the tribulation. When the Antichrist has been revealed, there will be 144,000 Jews who will be sealed. So these Jews will get a revelation from God in a very supernatural way, and they will surrender their life to Christ during the time of tribulation. And God will use these 1,44,000 Jews to actually reach out to the Gentiles, which is also recorded for us in Revelation. So again, remember, this is not like a literal 1,44,000 Jews. This is basically, symbolic figure representing that all the tribes of Israel will be there sealed and protected during the times of, during the time of tribulation. And all of them, the Jewish people, there will be these people who will surrender their life to Christ. Okay, please remember, God definitely has a special favor for the Jews. God tells they are the apple of my eye. So when you look at the tribulation period, there will be something very supernatural that will happen that will actually bring the Jews back to God through the Messiah, Jesus Christ. Okay, so God will do something very supernatural, a miracle that will happen, that the Jews will turn to Christ. Okay, and then all of them, 1,44,000, a symbolic number, will be sealed. Okay, now what does the sealed Jews mean? Like I said, first, before God's severe judgment is poured on the earth, the 1,44,000 will be sealed with God's name. Okay, the lost tribes of Israel are found here. Now, it's very interesting. When you look at Jewish history, the northern kingdom of Israel, there is no sign of them. There is no record of them. What we know is of the southern kingdom, Judah. So usually what Jewish anthropology says is that the people that are now here in Israel, the Jewish people, they are mostly belonging to the southern tribe. Only 2 tribes. The remaining 10 tribes, the northern tribes that were taken away by Assyria into captivity, into exile, nobody knows what happened to them. Okay, so nobody knows. But the interesting thing is, maybe world history or anthropology doesn't know, but God knows exactly where the people of Israel are. God knows exactly where the tribes are. And as a result, during the tribulation, he will bring the tribes together and he will seal these 1,44,000 who will be saved in his name, and they will become like missionaries during the tribulation. Okay, so in the last days, God will bring the Jews back. The tribes that are lost now, we don't have any clue about them. We will recognize that God will definitely bring them back because he's the shepherd. He knows where the sheep are, and he will call them and bring them all under one fold. Okay, and they will experience God's favor as the world will face his judgment. Okay, there will be something supernatural that has been never experienced yet. God will show that to protect the elect during the time of tribulation. Okay, so remember, the time of tribulation is a time of great discouragement, a time of great weeping and suffering, but God will protect the elect in the most supernatural way. Okay, he is faithful, he will not leave them. So what will the 1,44,000 do? They are the sealed, right? What will they do during the time of tribulation? That is what Revelation tells us in the next verses. After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. Okay, so not just the Jews, but here you see people from all nations. So the 1,44,000 Jews will actually go during the tribulation and evangelize the rest of the world. So there will be multitudes of people from different, every nation, tribe, people, and language standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands. And they cried out in a loud voice, salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. So once again, please remember, during the time of tribulation, as first the seal judgment is being revealed, then we will talk about the trumpet, then we will talk about the bowl. Between everything, all of these judgments, God makes sure that chapter 7 is included to encourage the readers, okay, to encourage us, saying that the elect and those who will be saved during the tribulation, God will do something special in their life during that time. Okay, so God will use the 1,44,000 Jews to actually evangelize the rest of the world, and several people, multitudes during the time of great tribulation will actually turn to Christ and receive that eternal life that he gives. Okay, verse 13 to 17 says, then one of the elders asked me, these in white robes, who are they? And where did they come from? I answered, sir, you know. And he said, these are they who have come out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore, they are before the throne of God and serve him day and night in his temple. And he who sits on the throne will shelter them with his presence. How beautiful it is, right? So during the 7-year tribulation period, when there'll be so much of suffering, God will definitely make sure that his elect are protected, both the Jews as well as from the Gentile nations, and they will be protected and they will serve him day and night for all eternity. Never again will they hunger, never again will they thirst. The sun will not beat down on them, not any scorching heat. For the Lamb at the center of the throne will be the shepherd. He will lead them to springs of living water, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Okay, so let us not get discouraged because of the tribulation. Okay, let us remember that God will definitely protect his loved ones in a very supernatural way, that they'll be able to sustain and withstand the tribulation. But please again remember that most churches believe, for the most majority in the churches believe that the church will not be there during the tribulation, right? Please remember that. Okay, most people in the church will believe that before the tribulation happens, the church will be raptured. So the ones who will be saved at this point of time during the tribulation, God will protect them and God will keep them safe. Okay, so that is something. Now, right after this, the Bible, talks about the saved Gentiles, like I said, saved through the ministry of the 144,000 Jews. They did not receive the mark of the beast and hence were not able to buy or sell, but God will protect them in some way during the tribulation. So even though they were not able to buy and sell, of course, the beast comes only later, right? So these people throughout the tribulation come to the saving knowledge of Christ, but God will protect them and provide for them during the tribulation. So please remember this, okay? Now let's quickly go to Revelation chapter 8. Now the seventh seal is open. So remember, after the six seals were open, chapter 7 serves as a break to encourage the hearers. And now the seventh seal is open. Now when the seventh seal is open, the seventh seal introduces the next judgment. That is the trumpet judgment. Okay, and we will quickly look at the trumpet judgment. When he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. And I saw the seven angels who stand before God, and seven trumpets were given to them. Then the seven angels who had the seven trumpets prepared to sound them. The first angel sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and it was hurled down on the earth. A third of the earth was burnt up, a third of the trees were burnt up, and all the green grass was burnt up. Okay, so when you look at now, this is the second type of judgment, all right, within the 7-year tribulation period. So there are three judgments that will happen: the seal judgment, the trumpet judgment, and the bowl judgment. The seal judgment has already happened. A lot of people have died, but even in those times, God has the elect with them. Now, when the seventh seal is open, God introduces the seventh trumpet judgment. Okay, so what is the trumpet judgment? This is the trumpet judgment. The first trumpet talks about similar to the seventh plague in Egypt, right? Hail, fire mixed with blood, severe food crisis. So when you look at the trumpet judgment, there is a lot of similarity to the plagues in Egypt. Okay, and that is the reason why most Bible scholars will say that all these judgments are not talking about the same events. These are talking about different events because they explain completely different things. Okay, example, when the first seal was opened, what was it? The Antichrist was introduced. But when the first trumpet is blown, there is no mention of the Antichrist. It says that there was like a plague-like situation. There was severe food crisis. That is what happened. Okay, and that is the reason why I am also following the chronological account, and I'm not following, what some may believe to be same explanation of, different explanation of a similar event. So I'm following the chronological. Now the trumpet judgment is happening, right? So the first trumpet happens, and then there is severe food crisis that is, similar to the seventh plague in Egypt. The second angel sounded his trumpet, and something like a huge mountain, all ablaze, was thrown into the sea. A third of the sea turned into blood, a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. Okay, now this is the second trumpet is blown. Again, remember, very similar to the first plague in Egypt, right? Where the Nile turns into blood. So there is severe ecological and economic disaster that will happen when the second trumpet is blown. Remember, all these judgments are happening within the time of the 7-year tribulation period. Okay, starts with the seal judgment. Now there is the trumpet judgment. God is actually judging the earth during the time of tribulation. Let's see when the third trumpet blows, what happens. The third angel sounded his trumpet, and a great star blazing like a torch fell from the sky on a third of the rivers, and on the springs of water. The name of the star is wormwood. A third of the waters turned bitter, and many people died from the waters that had become bitter. Again, very similar to something that the Israelites in the Old Testament had experienced. This was when they encountered the bitter water in Mara, right? A lot of people dying, and that time also, when they encountered the bitter water in Mara, a lot of people fell sick, right? Again, God had to heal. And now you see that even during the third trumpet judgment, people are dying because the waters have turned bitter. There's severe water crisis, no drinking water. This is happening during the trumpet judgment. The fourth angel sounded his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them turned dark. A third of the day was without light, and also a third of the night. Similar to the ninth plague in Egypt, severe survival challenges, right? If there is so much of darkness, surviving becomes extremely, extremely difficult. And all of these things will happen during the tribulation time. But God will, in a supernatural way, protect his elect that he chosen, right? So this is what happens during the trumpet judgment. Okay, four of the trumpets. When you look at chapter 9 again, the remaining of the trumpet judgments are given. When the other trumpet, the fifth till the seventh trumpets are blown, what happens we will see next week. But so far we are looking at these trumpet judgment that started. Okay, so the 7-year tribulation period starts with the introduction of the Antichrist. Then there is the seal judgment. Now, after the seal judgment, we have the trumpet judgment. So please understand, there will be a lot of disaster, economic disaster, ecological disaster, survival will become a challenge. And that is where the Antichrist will become the leader of the world. And he will probably claim that he has the answer to the world's problems. And then he will want to challenge God. So you remember, as we are progressing in the 7-year tribulation period, all these judgments of God are actually placing the Antichrist to become the charismatic world leader. And so when the Bible will talk more about the Antichrist, the beast and the false prophet, we will look at their role in details during the 7-year tribulation period. But understand, because there will be all of this crisis, economic crisis, ecological crisis, all of these are just preparing the stage for the Antichrist to become the leader of the world. Okay, he will introduce the one world religion. He will introduce the one world financial resolution. All of that he will introduce. And so all these plagues and judgments are preparing the stage for him to take over the world before the final battle happens with the real Christ. Okay, so this is where we will stop tonight. And if you have any questions or any comments, Pastor Bhagirathi would be facilitating that time now. And so we stop here with the fourth trumpet judgment, the fifth, sixth, and all. We will see next week when we come back. Okay, so let me stop the share and then we'll go into a time of discussion and questions.